There's a change coming to Social Security in 2027, and most people won't feel it until it's already cost them. Here's what's happening. The cost of living raise for next year is shaping up to be one of the biggest in a generation, somewhere around 3.9%, maybe as high as 4.2%. That would be the fourth largest raise in 36 years. And every headline is going to tell you that's good news. I'm going to show you, in plain English, with no sales pitch, why a bigger raise can actually leave you with less. Not a conspiracy, just arithmetic the headlines skip. Before I say another word, I want you to do one thing. Pause this. Find your Social Security award letter or log in at ssa.gov and look at your exact monthly benefit. Got the number? Now multiply it by 3.9%. That's the raise the headlines are promising you. Write that number down somewhere. We're going to come back to it. For reference, the average retired worker benefit was about $2,081 a month as of spring 2026. On that, a 3.9% raise is roughly $81 a month. Yours will be different. Use yours, because by the end of this, I'll show you how much of that $81 is already gone. Now, why is this happening so fast? A few months ago, the forecast for 2027 sat near 1.7%. Then prices jumped. The nonpartisan Senior Citizens League moved its estimate from 2.8% up to 3.9%. An independent analyst, Mary Johnson, went to 4.2%. The driver was energy, pump prices spiking after a Middle East oil shock rippled through the economy. In April 2026, overall prices were up 3.8% from a year earlier, the hottest reading since May 2023. Energy was up nearly 18%, gasoline up over 28%. These are estimates as of May 2026, not the official number. That doesn't come until mid-October. But the direction is clear. So here's the first thing most people miss, and it's the foundation for everything else. A bigger COLA is not a gift, it's a receipt. Stay with me, because once you see this, you can't unsee it. The raise only went up because your costs already went up first. The system is looking in the rear-view mirror. It never gets ahead of your bills. By design, it follows them. Let me draw out exactly why. Here's the calendar. The COLA is calculated by taking the third quarter of this year, July, August, September, and comparing those prices to the same 3 months a year ago. So the 2027 raise is measuring how much more expensive 2026 already got. Now watch the gap. Your costs rise all through 2026. But the raise doesn't land in your check until January 2027. That means you front the higher prices out of your own pocket for a full year before the so-called raise ever shows up. Okay, so you've got your headline number. For our example, $81. Hold on to it. Now we start subtracting, because that number is gross, not net. The very first deduction comes out before the money ever touches your bank account. It's Medicare Part B, and it's pulled straight from your Social Security check. And here's where it gets expensive. This is the second thing most people miss. For 2026, the standard Medicare Part B premium is $202.90 a month. The year before, it was $185. That's a jump of $17.90, about 9.7%, in a single year. Premiums went up more than 2.5 times faster than the 2.8% raise retirees actually got for 2026. So before you ever see a raise, roughly $18 a month of your future increase is already spoken for. Take that out of our $81 example, and you're down around $63. Now you might be thinking that's still a raise. 60-some dollars, and on paper it is. But there's a second layer here, and it's the one nobody puts on the chalkboard. We'll connect it in a minute, but plant this thought. A raise only helps you if it beats inflation. So the real question isn't how big the number is, it's whether it buys more than last year. Hold that. Here's the answer the data gives us. As of April 2026, real average hourly earnings, that's wages after you strip out inflation, fell 0.3% over the prior 12 months. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that directly. It's a small number, but the direction is the whole point. Across the economy, the average paycheck bought less than it did a year earlier, not more. So a raise that simply keeps pace with rising prices isn't getting you ahead. It's running to stay in place, and often not even managing that. Let me put the whole thing side by side, because this is the heart of it. On the left, the story you've been sold. On the right, what actually lands. The raise looks like 3.9%. The Part B premium quietly clawed back a chunk. Inflation ate into what's left. And we haven't even touched taxes yet. When you stack it up, the fourth largest raise in 36 years can land in your pocket as something close to flat, or, after inflation, slightly negative. If this is the kind of breakdown that helps you see the system clearly, go ahead and subscribe. I do one of these whenever the numbers move, so you'll catch the next one. And stay with me, because we've still got the two biggest pieces coming. What taxes quietly do to this, and whether the raise is even standing on solid ground. Now the taxes, because this is the part the IRS doesn't advertise. Two things can happen when your benefit goes up. First, more of your Social Security can become taxable. The thresholds that decide that haven't been adjusted for inflation in decades, so every raise nudges more retirees over the line. Second, if you're on Medicare, a higher income can push you into the next IRMAA bracket. That's an income-related surcharge added on top of your Part B premium. So the raise can quietly raise your taxes and your premiums at the same time. But the real problem is actually bigger than any single year. And this is the one that keeps people up at night. The whole COLA mechanism sits on contested ground. The Congressional Budget Office and Social Security's own trustees don't fully agree on when the trust fund runs short. They're looking at the same system and reaching different dates. I'm not here to scare you. The checks are going out today, and for the near term, that's not in question. But it's fair to ask, if the math is this debated, how confident can anyone be in a raise built on top of it? Quick, important note before we go further. This is education, not advice. I don't know your tax bracket, your other income, or your health costs. Every number on this board is a public figure from SSA, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, or CMS, and I'll list the categories in the description. Your job is to run your own numbers, or have someone you trust run them with you. The point of this video isn't to tell you what to do. It's to make sure the headline doesn't decide for you. Let me make this concrete. Hypothetical example. Tom and Linda, both 67, both retired. Their combined benefit is about $3,800 a month. A 3.9% raise looks like roughly $148 more, but Part B goes up for both of them. Call it $36 gone right away. A slice of their raise pushes a bit more of their benefit into taxable territory, and their grocery and energy bills already rose through 2026, the very reason the raise exists. Net, the $148 that looked like a raise feels at the kitchen table like they're standing still. They're not careless. The system is just doing exactly what it's built to do. So when you put all three together, the rear view mirror timing, the deductions, and inflation, you get the real picture. The raise isn't the problem. The problem is that the raise is a measurement of damage already done, handed to you a year late, with pieces removed on the way. That's not a flaw you can fix by hoping for a bigger number. A bigger number means your costs rose more. The two move together. That's the trap. Now let's stretch this across a real retirement, because 1 year hides the cost, and the long arc reveals it. Say the gap between what the COLA gives you and what your costs actually rise is just a little each year. 1% here, 0.5% there. Over a 25 to 30-year retirement, those small annual shortfalls compound. The same way interest grows in your favor when you're saving, this works against you when you're spending. By your mid-80s, a fixed income that looked fine at 65 simply doesn't reach as far. Not because you did anything wrong, but because the gap quietly widened every single year. And here's the closing beat, the one nobody puts a number on. What that gap really decides is two things: what your money buys at 85 and what's left to pass on. This is why the size of the raise matters so much less than people think, and why the timing matters so much more. You can't control the COLA, but you can control whether you understood it before it arrived, whether you planned around the lag instead of being surprised by it every January. That awareness, started early, is worth more than any single year's raise. So here's where we land. When the 2027 COLA gets announced in October, and the headlines call it one of the biggest raises in 36 years, you'll know what it actually is. A receipt for costs you already paid, handed over a year late with Medicare, inflation, and taxes taking their cut on the way in. Not a gift. A lag. Go back to the number you wrote down at the start and run it through this whole board for yourself. If these breakdowns help you see the system clearly, subscribe. I do one whenever the numbers move. And tell me in the comments, when you ran your own benefit through this, how much of your raise was actually left? I read those.